All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the AmeriCorps Alumni Network, where we catch up with AmeriCorps alums to reflect on their national service, their term of national service, and learn what they're up to now. I'm Nikki Fiacco, and I'm just couldn't wait any longer to bring our community together and just start conversations and getting to know our 1 million strong alumni. I feel like this is a great platform for AmeriCorps alums to share their experiences. And what I really want to hold up is where we all are now. We all had a very similar but different service year experience, and we're all doing different things. And if you haven't tuned in, we have about 6 other podcasts that I did earlier, or interviews. This isn't a real podcast yet, that I did earlier with AmeriCorps alums that are doing all sorts of things. Some of them started out with NCCC, some of them were Vista, and learning about where everybody is now. But I am an AmeriCorps alum. I served with Volunteer Maryland at a community park focusing on environmental education during the years of 2011 and 2012. Sorry, my brain there. But this is not an interview about Nikki. This is an interview about, we have Rafi Stern. Is that correct? Sorry,
Rafi.
Rafi, I'm so sorry. I should have checked that beforehand. Rafi Stern is with us, and he is a New York City Civic Corps alumni, 2010 to 2011. And we're just excited. Thank you so much for jumping on this call. And we're excited to learn more about what you did during your service year, the time between your service year and what you're doing now. And actually, Rafi has some really cool free resources. So I always like to hold it to the end. So stick around and learn about a few legal free resources that are available. So I'm going to let you take it away, Rafi. And like I said before, I will probably interrupt you, and apologies ahead of time. So let's start with your service year. Take it away.
Yep, sounds good. No problem. Glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me. So yeah, like you said, I was an AmeriCorps member in 2010 and 2011. I did, one of the sort of 10-month program. I was a member of something called the NYC Civic Corps, which is still around. I just checked before this interview. It's a state and national program. I guess it's a grant or something like that to the mayor's office in New York City. So it's run through the mayor's office, and the goal of the program is to increase volunteerism in New York. So, it's a pretty large program. When I did it, there were probably, this is a guess, but there were probably, maybe 75 participants or 50 or 75, something on that order of magnitude. And, we were all placed at different nonprofit and I think maybe some government agencies to really try to stimulate, volunteer engagement, participation in whatever we were doing. I was placed with Phipps Community Development Corporation, which is a nonprofit that does, community work, largely in the Bronx. There was an office in Manhattan that I worked at, some also on some development and fundraising stuff. But mostly I was running a program to engage volunteers to help students get their GED. So that was largely adults. It was some, high school and post-high school age students. And then we also did some tutoring for high school and some middle school students. It was all during the week. Sometimes we did tutoring on Saturdays. And I was based in the West Farms neighborhood of the Bronx. So, I'm happy to talk a little bit about the experience and then talk about where I am now, I guess.
Yeah, I always think I find it fascinating to hear everybody's different experience through their service year. So what you explained is that the organization that you were with was an intermediary, and I also was part of an intermediary. And I share this on a couple other interviews that we did where I thought I was hired as a volunteer coordinator for this park. And so my very first day of in-person training with Volunteer Maryland, when I saw 20 other people around a table, I was so confused. I'm like, wait, how many volunteer coordinators are there? So the idea of an intermediary is a really great way for AmeriCorps to expand its footprint within a geographic area. And so I would love to hear about like your experience at your site, and then maybe how you interacted with some of those other members who were not serving at your site. Like, what did that look like, right? Because our program was pretty conscious of bringing us, very intentional about bringing us together. So we had the site experience, but then we had the cohort experience. So I don't know
Yeah.
if you can speak to that a little.
Definitely, I can. So the cohort experience, I think, was great. There were some, there was a head of the NYC Civic Corps, and then I think there were a bunch of people called service fellows, who were generally people who had done the Civic Corps program the year before, and then stayed on for another year
Mm.
to be coordinators of the program. I thought they did a great job. They, like you said, maybe every few weeks we would do programming with the cohort where we would go. Sometimes we would go like to a corporate volunteer program and hear them present about that. We did other things that were about sort of exploring New York City and stuff like that.
Mm.
So yeah, that was a great experience. I mean, I think it was, it's obviously a relatively minor part of the program, which is mostly focused on the actual service, but it was definitely something positive that supplemented the experience. I think as for the actual experience, I would say I had a good experience overall, and as you'll see later on in the interview, it definitely in some ways led to where I am now. So I'm definitely grateful for the program existing. It kind of got me ultimately onto my career track, and honestly, it was hard to find a job in 2010, so I was grateful to have that also. The program itself, I think, was, I guess now that I work with nonprofits, I know how stretched thin everybody is. So, in retrospect, it kind of makes sense. I would say, there wasn't a ton of supervision and oversight. We were kind of given an office and told you can go ahead and start a volunteer tutoring program. So someone had been working on it the year before us, so there was a little bit to start from, but it was really me and a colleague who was also in the program. There were two of us that were placed with FIPS. And we just kind of got the program off the ground, recruiting volunteers. It was great to work with a huge variety of volunteers. There were a lot of students from Fordham University that's nearby. There were some really nice older people who had lived in the neighborhood, 60 years ago and wanted to give back. And then there were just sort of other people who were interested in becoming teachers, all people from all walks of life, really, which was interesting. And then we just connected them with the students that were there, and we're trying to have supplemental services to, really get on track to get their GEDs, and to get high school diplomas if they were in high school. So
Something to be said when, as an AmeriCorps member, and I don't know, my AmeriCorps year, I was in my 30s. So, I had a little bit of life under my belt, but I can imagine, like, even when I was serving, to see the community come out to support the projects I was just so impressed and kind of baffled every time. I'm like, do you guys have like dinner plans or like what? And I don't know how your feeling was, but I definitely was, felt a really impactful community connection when community members came out to support, whether it was environmental education programs or park cleanup or whatever in the work that I was doing. So I can imagine the work that you're doing, the intergenerational interaction must have been a little bit like, well, that's cool.
yeah, no, it's great. I agree. It's definitely moving to see people, like you say, now that I'm an adult, I know how busy life can get. So it's yeah, you see people really like take time out of their lives, to try to help others. It is pretty moving.
Yeah. So I interrupted you. You're in a train of thought. So
No, no problem.
continue with the train.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the high level summary of my experience. I'm happy to talk more about it. I guess I did mention also, part of what I did was I kind of asked for some more responsibilities, and they did have me work on some fundraising and some program stuff at their office in Manhattan in the city. So that was a nice mix. It was kind of I wasn't really on a track to be a teacher or anything like that. So it gave me some program experience. And sorry about the sirens in the background.
That's okay.
I am in New York, so that's how it goes.
It's part of the experience
Yeah,
of
exactly.
live interviews.
Gives you the ambiance.
Yes.
But yeah, no, so I think that, that gave me a nice kind of balance of experiences, and did some grant writing stuff. And I don't think I got too far into much of the program side, because I was only there maybe 1 or 2 days a week, but I thought it was a good mix. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, so now fast forward to today. I work, I'm an attorney now, and I work still at a nonprofit, or at a nonprofit again, called Lawyers Alliance for New York. And Lawyers Alliance is a nonprofit ourselves. We give corporate and transactional legal advice to other nonprofits that serve low-income people in the 5 boroughs of New York. And it's kind of a long, winding story to how I got there, which I guess we'll get into. But yeah, that's what I'm doing now. I give legal counsel to nonprofits, and I've been there for almost 4 years now. So it's been a pretty good run. And like I said, I think I talked about my AmeriCorps experience in my initial interview, and I think it definitely did help me kind of end up in this position. So I'm certainly grateful for that.
And so after your service year, so there's a little gap there from from your service year to here. So tell me, because I feel like sometimes when people, I don't know, I guess generally in life, it's like, well, I want to go there. And it's just really not a straight path. So tell us about your curvy, windy road. Um, after your service year, where did you go? What did you do? And how did you fall into it after your service year? Or was it intentional? I mean, I intentionally took my position description from my AmeriCorps year and I brought it to the park director and I said, I did this for one of your parks. I want to do it for all of your parks. And he was like, okay. And that's how I got hired.
That sounds entrepreneurial of you. I don't think I had that thought process. I wish I
I'm a
did.
pretty driven person.
Yeah, it's great. No, so I didn't, I actually, I remember I talked with the executive director at my placement, and I kind of said, are you hiring? Are there jobs? But it was still a very difficult time in the economy. 2011, we were still deep in the recession. So they really weren't hiring. And so I basically, went online and looked for jobs because I had this nonprofit experience. I kind of focused my search there. Although, I probably would have been up for a lot of different things at that point. And I don't remember how I found it, but I think it was just through maybe idealist.org. I know that's somewhere I looked a lot, obviously a lot of nonprofit jobs there, and they're actually a client now at Lawyers Alliance.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I think I found it there, but I just found this, program assistant job at the Stella and Charles Gutman Foundation. That's a foundation that still exists. It's a lot smaller now, but at the time they had an endowment of about $50 million, making them a small to medium sized foundation. It's a staff of about 4 people, and the foundation works on, or at least at the time worked on, mostly public education and other community-based services in New York City. It was a grant-making foundation, so giving away money to nonprofits essentially. The job that I got, well, the way I got it actually was, they always told me this, that I was the only person who actually called them rather than just submitting my resume through.
Oh, wow.
So I guess that's a pro tip, at least in 2011, that's what worked.
Yeah.
Might be different now, but.
Well, and I can imagine during your AmeriCorps year, if you were coordinating volunteers, you had to communicate with people differently. So whether it goes back to your AmeriCorps year or not, I'm going to find a way to loop it back, because I am the juice creator of doing it a service year. But
Yeah.
I do think that our service year pushes us out of our comfort zone. I was talking to Kate Morton, and she did NCCC. I think it was the interview before this. And she kept saying that she would have to reset her comfort zone. And I love that idea, because we aren't stagnant. It's like once we get out of our comfort zone, we start calling people on the phone. then there's a new level there, it's a small thing, but I don't
Yeah.
know, the idea of resetting our comfort zone, I think I think it's a cool idea.
Yeah. No, I was definitely motivated at that time. And yeah, so that's how I ended up doing it. And the job was really it was essentially an executive assistant job, sort of being at the front desk. I mean, it wasn't too substantive. But I took the job, I started doing it, and I think I really tried to show some interest, some initiative, and a few people ended up leaving the positions that were quote unquote above me. And so then I ended up being what they call the program associate, and then the program officer. So that's, program officer is a job that a lot of people associate with foundations, where you're really the one evaluating nonprofits and making decisions about what does or doesn't get funding. So, I think I was there for 3 years, essentially, almost 3 years after the AmeriCorps program. So that was pretty long chunk. I don't think I ever really thought about going to grad school, but my dad is a lawyer, so I guess it was kind of in the back of my mind. He's a criminal defense lawyer, and he worked at legal aid for a long time. So I didn't really want to do what he does, but it was always in my mind to think about grad school at least. And then after I'd been at the foundation for a number of years, I started thinking of it more seriously. I guess I just felt like, I probably could have stayed there a little bit longer, but I didn't really see, like, it was a very small organization, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to be there like really long term. So
Mhm.
started thinking about grad school more.
And that brought you to
Yeah.
da
Yeah.
law
So
school.
yeah, I did end up going to law school. Obviously, I am a lawyer, so I had to do it some way. So yeah, I took the LSAT while I was working. I studied for it and took it. That was really hard. It was a challenge to like do it on the weekends and sort of outside of my um work hours. Is just like a lot on top of it, but ended up doing that. I kind of wished I had done it when I was in school, because it would have, it was you have a little more flexibility when you're in school. But ended up doing that, took the test, and then applied to a bunch of schools. Went around and visited some of them, again kind of in my last few months on the job. I took some vacation time and did that. Yeah, and then I ended up deciding, and I went to Ithaca, to Cornell Law School, in fall of 2014.
Mhm. And how fun was law school? Tell us all about it. No, don't. That's another podcast.
Yeah. So, I mean, I one thing I will say is I really I enjoyed being a student. I mean, I probably have always enjoyed being a student more than working. So
Agree.
I know it's the reverse for some people, but for me, it was, after being in the workforce for a while, it was very refreshing to be back in school. And so, that was a nice change of pace, even though particularly the first year of law school is very, very intense. There's, it's, I think, infamous for kind of weeding people out, or just being, you're doing the foundational courses. And so it's really, there's a lot going on. And it's also the use of the Socratic method, where they're kind of cold calling you in class. So you really have to be
Mm,
on your toes in each
wow.
class. Yeah. Yeah. So it was definitely intense, but it was different. It's like, just a different pace, using a different part of your brain. So I really enjoyed it. I had a good experience in Ithaca also. It was insanely snowy the first year I was there. But then after that, it was a little bit better. But obviously it's cold there. But I thought it was a great city, and I'd lived in New York basically my whole life. So it was a nice change of pace for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, when we were chatting prior to this, we talked about your law school experience, and you mentioned that your mother, Susan, Wesserman, is that correct?
Yep.
She did go through a hard time during that time, and she ultimately did pass away. But I feel like, and we talked about this ahead of time, this would be a really great time to just bring some knowledge to the condition that she was suffering from, which was PSP. And you said it was an atypical showing of Parkinson's. So if you want to touch on that, I think that if you feel comfortable, we'd love to honor her legacy through all of your accomplishments and hers as well.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, that was, that definitely changed my experience of law school. And I think probably why I didn't have kind of a very typical experience. She did have a rare type of Parkinson's that she really, I get, is a little hard to understand in retrospect. Like the timing was a little unclear because, it's not like she was just healthy one day and then sick the next day. It was a progressive disease. But, I think she really started to get sick towards the end of my first year. And we kind of saw a lot of things that were going on. And it was a very, when people think of Parkinson's, they think of kind of Michael J. Fox and, people who've lived for many years with it. But she had a really intense, kind of difficult form of it that eventually required really 24-hour care. So I ended up going, back to New York City a lot. I would sometimes go leave on a Thursday from Ithaca and go on Sunday. And this was all before really remote school or any options like that. So there's definitely a lot of back and forth. And I think that, I feel like there were a lot of things that I could have done sort of on campus that I didn't really do like other law students might, just because of all the back and forth. But, it was obviously really rewarding to be with her. And I guess, the lesson I take from it is just like, there's all kinds of people have all kinds of things going on in their life. And I was able to finish school, was kind of the main thing, largely thanks to my dad really helping. And of course we had paid caregivers for her too, when he or I weren't around. So, I think, I guess I would hope to just be a lesson that, you can go through all kind of crazy things in life and come out the other side. And I know that's, my mom would want me to keep going. So I
Yeah.
think
And what a blessing that you were able to spend the time, the fact that you were relatively close. I mean, I'm not super familiar with New York, but upstate Ithaca is upstate.
Yeah, it was like a 3.5 hour drive. So it was like, it was doable. It's not like I was 10 hours away or something.
Yeah. So, well, I appreciate you reflecting on that with us. Is there anything that we should know about like supporting the condition or anything that we could do
Yeah,
if
sure. So
collective?
yeah, thank you. So there's an organization called Cure PSP, and I did a webinar for them. It's on my LinkedIn if people want to look me up, but you can also look up the organization itself, and they do research into the disease, and they have a lot of support for caregivers and things like that.
Mm.
So I think it's for a whole family of diseases beyond just PSP, but it's a great organization. I've worked with them. We did a fundraiser in my mom's honor in 2018, I guess it was. So yeah, I've been a little bit involved in them. I'm still kind of a peer volunteer for other people who are going through the same thing, where I just talk with people and try to give them some advice.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing. And I'll make sure I put those in the show notes, as they call them in this
Sounds good.
YouTube world of ours. Thank you. And then, so you finished your law school, and did you go straight into what is it? Alliance.
Lawyers Alliance? No, I
Alliance
didn't.
in New
I
York.
didn't. So I've in the few years I've been a lawyer, I've had a bunch of legal jobs already. So my first, right after law school, I worked at a major law firm in New York City called Paul Weiss. And, I think I was attracted to the firm because they have kind of a culture of pro bono and public service work. And that's what I do now. So again, maybe some way it kind of led me to where I am now. I was in a bankruptcy restructuring practice. Yeah, it was totally kind of out of left field from what I had been doing before. I actually wrote my law school application about wanting to represent nonprofits, so did end up doing what I said I would do. But
Mm-hmm.
coming out of law school, the vast majority of jobs are at law firms. It's kind of hard to get a job in a public interest position, although it can be done. It's not like I worked super hard to do it. I just sort of took the path of least resistance, I think, to go to the firm. So I did that for about a year and a half, and it was a good experience. It was like very intense. I mean, people told me it would be intense, but I you don't really realize it until you're actually doing it. So it was a lot of work. People at the law firm work very hard, and they work long hours and irregular hours, and everyone was super smart and super motivated. So
So
it was,
was it like really fast paced? Like, and like, I don't know how many cases I'm going to say managed. Again, I'm
sure,
not,
sure.
like I can imagine I had a very short experience with a legal person during a divorce, and I managed my time with that person very, very well because
Mhm.
lawyers are not cheap.
That's right. That's
If
right.
you went on talking too long, I'm like, no, I'm done here. I'm done here. I'm leaving. But I can imagine, like, was it fast paced? Were you juggling a lot of cases? Were clients calling you? I mean, is it
Yeah,
like the TV
so
shows?
it was very fast paced. So it was, I would be working on like, maybe 4 to 6 bankruptcy cases at one time. And these were obviously not individuals. They were really large, like corporate bankruptcies. Um, so, what makes in particular bankruptcy so fast paced is that a company can kind of file for bankruptcy at any time, essentially. They can file on a weekend or, and whenever they do, there's a lot of work that goes into preparing the case and then actually getting it filed. So
Mm.
it was fast paced, and I think it was just also very unpredictable.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, so it was, I think the substance was really interesting to me. I think the lifestyle was not probably not for me, but yeah, the lawyers definitely charge a lot too. So it was lawyers aren't cheap at any time, and they're not in big law firms for sure.
Yeah.
Unless you come to Lawyers Alliance, and then you can work with those same lawyers for free on a pro bono basis.
Yeah,
We'll
let's
get to
talk
that
about that because
today.
that's cool.
Yeah.
But it's not, I can't imagine it's for civil cases. So let's go into that. Let's spend the last part of the chat about um how come I can't get the name of your organization?
Oh, that's okay.
Um
Lawyers Alliance. Yeah.
Lawyers
Yeah, so
Alliance.
I guess I'll just say the one other thing I did before getting to Lawyers Alliance is I
Oh
worked
yeah.
for a federal judge, actually also a bankruptcy judge. She was based in Syracuse, New York. So I went back upstate. I actually had the connection through law school, so that was a great experience. She was a great boss. It was just me and another clerk and her in her chambers. She's retired now from the bench, but that was another year, and that was a really interesting experience to kind of be behind the scenes with a judge. Um, so then I thought about going back to the firm, but ended up getting a fellowship at Lawyers Alliance. So
Mm.
it was a fellowship through the NYU Center on Philanthropy and the Law, and that was yet another 1 year thing. So I guess it's you could,
Wow.
at least I've been there for a while now, but you can tell there's a theme in doing 1 year stints. But they were all by design, right? Like they were
Hmm.
all up. It's like AmeriCorps up front. You're just kind of committing to the 1 year or 2 years or whatever it is.
Well, and I will say, I have two adult children. I am a relative age wise, apparently I'm an adult, but I mean, for us to, at least in the United States, I don't know what it is abroad or anything, but for us at 18 to ask kids that are finishing high school to be like, what do you want to do with your life? Like, let's chart the course for you is insane.
Yeah.
Like reflecting back on it now, it's insane. Like I still don't know what I want to do. Like right now, I want to do this. I want to talk with AmeriCorps members, AmeriCorps alum. I want to do national service, and I want to support everything that's national service. And to, like next year, I don't know what I want to do. So I think what I want people to understand from this amazing conversation is that it's not just walking a path, right? It's like taking a chance. It's like, I'm doing this for a year and I'm going to see what happens. I'm going to do this for a year. And then after that, I'm going to do whatever. Like you can have a plan for part of it. And then sometimes you really have to take a leap of faith. And I am a big fan of, like I mentioned before, being out of your comfort zone, maybe not necessarily knowing what's going to be there, but, and this is my esoteric sort of faithful person coming out, knowing that the right thing will show up at the right time. And you just have to truly believe that. I've wanted things so bad. I've gotten so close to jobs that I'm just like, this is it. This is what I want to do. And then I don't get it. And I'm like baffled. I'm like, no, that's not the story. Like if I'm writing the story, that's not the story I'm writing. But then something else comes up and I learn more about myself than I probably would have if I would have taken this other position or had this other opportunity. So I think you saying it was a year, it was a year, it was a year is so important for alumni that are listening. And, you know, this is public. I don't know how to like just make it so that only a certain amount of people see it. And quite frankly, I want the world to see it. I want the world to see what AmeriCorps members have done during their service year and what they're doing now. And I want people who might be considering service or finishing their service year to know that, like, number one, there is no life after AmeriCorps. So I know there's all those programs that are like, let's celebrate life after AmeriCorps. Nope, you are a lifelonger AmeriCorps alum. And there's just different paths and it's going to change moment to moment to moment. So that was another example of me interrupting and going on a major riff. So I hope I
No,
didn't
that's right.
derail your thought.
No, that's right. And you know, the jobs that you said you didn't get, like even if you'd ended up getting them, they might not have been right for you, or they could have turned against you. So, you know, you just
Yeah.
end up where you're supposed to. Yeah. So I think, you know, I've definitely lived a lot professionally and personally. You know, I'm only 34, but I feel like I've definitely seen a lot in my years. And we can talk also about new politics if you want.
Oh, yes.
So happy to turn to Lawyers Alliance resources.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Actually, let's circle back real quick because I did interview Christina Flores. She was like my third interview. So she talked about new politics. I was part of new politics. I went through the program. So yeah, let's circle back to that and then we'll close out with what you're doing with Lawyers Alliance. So new politics, you were a facilitator with the program and also did some outreach. So tell us all about that because that's a cool
Yeah.
thing too.
Yeah, sure. So I was a participant. I'm gonna get the dates wrong here. I think I was a participant in 2020 and then facilitated in 2021 or 2022, something like that. But yeah, it's a funny story. I actually learned about it from, I think, an article in the magazine Kiplinger's or on the website. There was just like a list of programs for people who are interested in politics, interested in kind of working in politics or being in it in some way. You know, I've always been very interested in politics kind of in my personal life, but obviously haven't really done it for a career. It's kind of hard to know how to get at it, I guess. So I ended up participating. You know, New Politics Leadership Academy, for those who don't know, is a program really focused on national service alumni. So people who are in the military or AmeriCorps, Peace Corps, other national service programs, who are thinking about potentially running for office, you know, down the road. It doesn't have to be something you want to do immediately. But I did the program. It's like 5 or 6 sessions of kind of your vision for your career and your life. There's a lot of interesting material that you go through. I did that as a participant, and then I did it as a facilitator. So there's someone who is a volunteer facilitator. And I know Christina, we've worked together a little bit. So it's a great program. You know, I hope to be involved in it in the future. And yeah, it's just something I've done kind of on top of my work at Lawyers Alliance. It's obviously, completely outside of my day job. But it's something that I've enjoyed. That's been, been a nice thing to do. And certainly in the pandemic, when we couldn't go anywhere, it was fun to have something scheduled at night to lead or participate in.
Yeah, I think I did the program in 2021. Yeah, I think I did it in 2021. And same, I was like, well, I'm staring at the computer all day. I might as well stare at the computer at night too. But it was a great program. And one of the things I appreciated, and I just thought it was so cool that they brought it out, was you thought about like your purpose, and like if you were to run, like what would your purpose be, or like what would you run for, or whatever. But then what they flipped it, and it was like, what is the shadow of that, right? Like, what if, just you're in a position to make decisions, like what could change the way that you ultimately came into this position. And that was really cool, because basically it's taking your values and flipping them on their heads, and then saying what could tip you off of your values. So it was very cool to be introspective and reflect in a very safe space, and meet other people, right? Like I think I made connections with people right after that. So it's also a great program, and I definitely will link to that in the show notes. Um, I think they have applications open right now for their spring session. So this is timely if I get my editing butt in gear and get this out quicker than I'm doing right now. So thanks for reflecting. Anything else we should know about the program?
No, I think that's it. I think it was all virtual when I did it. I think they're starting to do it in person again, or at least
Mm,
they've discussed that. I don't want to speak for them, but I know they're based in New York and Boston. So I know if people are in those areas, might be something to look forward to doing it in person. And I'd love to facilitate it in person, because I think, that would be even more
that's cool.
powerful.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, keep us posted, because I would love to, I don't know, share somehow. But okay, let's go into um Lawyers Alliance and the cool stuff that you're doing, and the you know, things that people can reach out to and take advantage of some of the pro bono services.
Sure, sounds good. So, like I said, Lawyers Alliance, what we do primarily is I represent nonprofits, and we work with law firms that want to donate their time to do pro bono representation of nonprofits. The way we do that directly is, we only represent nonprofits that serve low income people in the 5 boroughs. For people who are national, I know you have kind of a national group here. There's something called the Exponentum network, which I can also send you a link to, that are organizations similar to Lawyers Alliance, but in other major cities across the country. So, if you run a nonprofit, if you're involved in a nonprofit, in most places, there's a way to get this similar type of pro bono representation. The other thing that we do that I think is going to be of interest to your listeners is, even if you're not, formally a client, right? If you don't sign an engagement letter with us, we're not your lawyers. We still have a lot of information about nonprofit law. It's part of our charitable mission to just increase knowledge of nonprofit law. Again, focused on New York, and we're all, admitted to practice law in New York. But I think a lot of people can learn a lot from our website.
Mhm.
Really, frankly, whatever state you're running a nonprofit in. So we have a bunch of legal alerts on our website. Those are all free. They give information on sort of legal trends, updates that you should know about. They're usually like 1 to 2 pages. They're pretty easy to digest. At least that's our goal when we write them. We also do webinars. I know people can be tired of webinars, but I think they're really valuable for kind of getting the basics. And a lot of them are recorded on our website. They're kind of evergreen. They're about incorporating a nonprofit, running a nonprofit, doing governance, contracts. There's all kinds of issues that you may or may not be aware of, but you should be aware of if you're running a nonprofit. And then the last thing we do is we have a resource call hotline. And that's a hotline that anyone can call. Again, you don't have to be a client. And we will give you legal information if we can sort of track it down in less than an hour. So we're not going to be giving you legal advice, right? If you want to negotiate a contract in detail, that's not what the resource call hotline is for. But what it is for is people who just say, we're raising money in New York. What's the website I go to register, right? Things like that. We'll be able to send you, some follow-up information, and we always try to respond to that within 48 hours. And I think we're pretty good at that. So, this should all be on our website, but if you want to link it in the notes also, those are kind of our main resources. And I know there's a lot of people who were or are still involved in nonprofits, and that's who we're here to serve. So thanks for giving me the chance to give our little pitch.
Yeah, no, that was great. Really great resources, and amazing that, and so true probably about the website, where there's information on there. People are just, at least they have a place to go, right? Like I'm notorious for, I just did this today where this doesn't have anything to do with legal counsel, but I shredded too much cabbage and I don't like to waste. So I had to Google, can you freeze cabbage? And like, if I was running a nonprofit, and maybe I shouldn't say this in public, but I would probably Google a whole bunch of things, right? So it's probably better to go to the legal experts than the Googles on those sorts of things. So at least the website can be bookmarked and go back to and reference. And again, I appreciate you sharing this valuable information with people. And I know you can't give legal advice unless they're clients, but if people meaning hopefully our AmeriCorps alum, wanted to reach out to you, would that be something that they could do? What would be the best way to do that?
Yeah, sure. So we can definitely put my bio. I'm publicly on the website. My email is out there. It's rstern@lawyersalliance.org. Definitely feel free to reach out to me. I'm always happy, obviously I can do the resource call if you just reach out directly to me, or I can get you in touch with one of my colleagues who have different expertise. Some are employment law, real estate law, policy issues, things like that. So, I think I'm happy to have people reach out to me, these kind of general legal information questions. I'm also happy to talk to people about, if they are thinking about starting a nonprofit. I have seen a lot in the nonprofit world at this point. So I'm happy to talk people through the pros and cons. It doesn't have to be a strictly legal discussion. We can always talk about what makes sense, what I've seen has worked or has not worked, and it could always end up when becoming a client down the road. So we're always happy to have those conversations, but people can definitely feel free to reach out to me. And also, I love helping people with career transitions and thinking about their careers. So people want to do that. As hopefully I've demonstrated in this interview, I've certainly had a lot of those transitions myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And then so two final closing questions. Number one, like I said, this is not just a channel for AmeriCorps alum. It's based around AmeriCorps alum, but anybody can see it. So let's just say somebody was interested in and thinking about, and just for the first time learned about AmeriCorps. What would your, I don't know, suggestion or pitch be to them if they were thinking about doing a service year?
Sure. So I had a great experience with the service year. I think, like you said, you're going to get pushed out of your comfort zone. You're going to see things that you hadn't seen before, or just things that you really, in terms of seeing poverty in the country and what people are going through, you're going to learn a lot that you may not have even known existed in the United States. So, and you'll have a chance to to try to do your small part to do something about it. So I had a really rewarding experience during the year, and it also helped me down the road professionally. I know we talked about this too. The thing you should know going in also is the salary is obviously very low. I lived at home during my service year. I don't think I said that, but living in New York City on the amount AmeriCorps pays is a very big challenge. So that's a bigger policy question, but I think it is important in any job to know, kind of going in, have your eyes wide open. But it's 10 months, if you do it at the right time in your life when you can manage it, I think it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, That's great. And then my final question is for the alumni group, what messaging do you want to give to the hundreds of thousands of us who have served? What would you love to see us as a body of alumni who have gone through, I like to say, similar but different experiences? What do you think we could do collectively?
Yeah, I mean, it's, one thing that I think about is like it's such a huge cohort or national, block at this point that I feel like, if enough people have had good experiences with national service and public service, it can be a really powerful voice voting block, however it comes out to try to support kind of the expansion of these kinds of programs, right? Whether it's increasing people's salaries or having the sort of mandatory national service is something that people talk about. Just thinking about innovative ways to expand national service and or to just encourage people to do it. So it is a pretty incredible how long it's been around and how many people have done it at this point. So I think doing interviews like this is really cool to try to bring that network together and sort of leverage it in a powerful way.
That's awesome. Well, thank you again for spending the time. I know you weren't feeling super great. So I appreciate for this conversation. I think it went almost 45 minutes. So that's awesome. And I will put all of the links in the show notes. So if anybody's looking to get in touch with Rafi Stern, AmeriCorps alum from 2010, 2011 from New York City Civic Corps. Thank you. I appreciate you, and I appreciate everybody for hanging around and tuning in. So have a great night. And as soon as I can wrangle in another AmeriCorps alum, we'll have another recording. Thank
Thanks.
you.